Say hi to everybody if people don't get on the internet, which should be
Hey
shocking.
everybody, I'm Alan Hocknell. I'm the Senior Vice President of Research and Development at Callaway Golf.
You have made some good improvements. Lower CG this year in the Raju ST. Can I call it the Raju? That's our code word
Rogue
here.
around here.
All right, we'll use Rogue
to refer to
since
it
you're here. Yeah. So lower CG, a little higher MOI. This one is the Max LS 5200 on our grams per centimeter squared measurement for MOI. So this driver is pretty good. I think this fits everybody. You disagree?
Well, we've got 4 drivers in the line
Yeah.
for a reason. We are able to sort of specifically design more for different golfers these days than maybe ever before. Maybe when a golfer comes into a fitting situation, they're really choosing from between 2 of the 4,
Sure.
Primarily. But definitely something there to tune the performance of the golf club to your needs more specifically than ever.
No, this thing's awesome.
Yeah, and then the model, the LS that Nick is holding, I've been particularly impressed with that it's very forgiving,
Right.
but also still really low spin. Maybe not the lowest spin in the line, but I think it's an awesome one for your better player that still needs a little bit of forgiveness, but I mean, not quite on the tour level.
Yeah, and there's the last one I hit with just with the Ventus 6S, the Velocore, 2,300 RPMs, and the loft on this is about 9.5 right now. 10 launch, goes far. I think that one was good. It's pretty normal, so it's not overly spinny for sure at high ball speeds.
That Max LS model is really set up pretty neutral, compared to maybe other drivers that have a built-in slight draw bias or a lot of draw bias. This one's derived of a lot of feedback that we've had from the tour. Players, particularly players with high head speed who want the club to set up really neutral, but could make the ball fall either left or right in the final third of the flight, depending upon their swing.
And that's been something I've been pretty impressed with the entire line, is just how neutral that CG is, really for all of them. Obviously, you have our Max D that does have that CG a little more positioned into the heel, or if you're looking on the opposite end of the spectrum, your Triple Diamond LS has it a little more in the toe, but just I think the kind of 2 bread and butter drivers, the Max and the Max LS, have it pretty much in the middle, so it fits a wide variety of players.
Yeah, and think that that lets the fitter determine the subtle differences from player to player, if there is one, to pick between 2 models like that. But you're not changing in an extreme way when you go from one model to the next. And even when you make adjustments to the hosel system there, where you might add a degree of loft or so, the change should be a soft change. We're not trying to make one driver head do lots of different things. That's the purpose of having 4 separate models in the line. We can make them do their thing really well.
Awesome. And I think, again, for consumers out there, obviously going through fittings is the way to do it. But if you were just to grab something off the rack, grabbing the Max or the Max LS, you probably have like a 90% chance that one of those would be pretty darn close to what you need.
The Max model in particular, it's the one that we think will probably serve as the center of the market. The most people should probably encounter that one first in a fitting, at least. It's going to be the highest MOI. It's got a pretty low center of gravity. That's a powerful combination. When you put it with the other technology that's inside the head, it's really some of the feedback we've been getting is that it's great for distance, but also consistency of performance. When your impact location moves around the face, has been fed back to us as being a sort of standout characteristic.
Yeah, you were talking about that, and then that is mainly the AI tech and just the unique way you built the face. Is that fair?
Yeah, there's a few things going on. So the kind of gold-colored part that you see at the back of the head here, this is allowing us to put more weight lower and more on the perimeter than it has been before. So that is helping us improve the MOI, and that's important in the open-close direction and in the loft-deloft direction, having a lot of weight back there. But then something that we do uniquely on face design is use artificial intelligence to optimize that face. And we started out using that tool really to optimize speed, and then speed when you don't hit the center of the face. But these days we're also using it to optimize consistency of speed and consistency of spin as well. So that's a very unique thing that we're doing. So while the face looks very conventional from the outside, on the inside there's a unique pattern of thick and thin areas, the contour of the back of the face, each different for the different models in the line. So there'll be 4 different faces essentially, and they're helping us not only get speed, but the consistency of speed and the consistency of spin. And I think that's something that we're uniquely doing using those AI design tools that we've developed.
And I think a lot of that's important for your tour player, but just your average golfer as well too. If we hit in the middle of the face, awesome, it's going to go pretty far, but obviously most of us probably don't hit the middle of the face every time, so
That's
making
right.
our average drive better.
That sounded like a very personal story for you.
No, we just talked about that a little bit.
So I just hit the LS. That one I hit a little bit low and a little on the toe. Launched at 12 and backspin almost at 2,900. Still really good with the ball speed. Usually I'm around the 170, 172 range with these at 45 inches, so really nice. Now I got the triple diamond. Tell me what's different about this than the LS, besides this one's a little lower spin, little lower MOI.
Yeah, so this one is most derived from tour player feedback. This is actually John Rahm's driver.
Yeah.
So John likes to hit it pretty high, and it fades a little in the final third of the flight. It's a small move to the right. And a lot of the setup of this driver is intended to do that. So it's the most right tending of the four models in the line. It doesn't have a strong right bias, but if you hit it well, that's the kind of preference for that sort of shot shape. It's not necessarily a shot that always goes right, though. There are people who hit a nice draw who want a right start line, and that's possible with this driver too.
Yeah, so if you're a player that does fight that, either fights the left overdraw or you just prefer a little bit of a fade, the triple diamond might be a great option for you.
Yeah, I think so.
Lowest spinning driver in the line as well too?
Yeah, that's intended to be that way. You know, there isn't a whole lot to choose in terms of spin between the Triple Diamond LS and the Max LS. So they're both LS drivers. Depending upon your impact location, the way you deliver the club, you might find a little bit of difference between them, but center of gravity heights are similar between them. And really for, you know, particularly PGA Tour level players these days, we're not necessarily driving center of gravity down and spin rates down the way that maybe was a trend a few years ago. While that creates, you know, very optimal looking numbers in an environment like this, going and actually playing golf with those numbers is a little bit more challenging.
Ooh,
so
you brought up a good point there,
Yeah.
because you know, we've heard that same thing, a 17 launch and 1,500 RPMs of backspin. No one on the PGA Tour is really playing like that, at least that I've seen in a long time.
25, 2,600 RPM is probably the average. You know, you get people lower than that, and they have you know, different swings for different holes as well. So fairway finder shots are not going to be in those really low
18th
spin
hole
numbers.
with pressure on. People aren't launching it at 17 and 17.
Exactly.
What else you got? Hand me something else.
Nature of playing golf is
You're
hitting it,
great.
you know, far enough. You're not trying to hit it as far as you can every single swing.
That one is much lower spin. That one I actually hit pretty close to the middle. My face angle was too close on that one, but 1477, so that reduced my backspin quite a bit more.
So we're changing from the triple diamond, our basically max fade model. Now we're going to the other end of the spectrum to our max D. So I think CG's maybe 3 or 4 millimeters on the toe in the triple diamond. And now, at least in the setting we have now, it's maybe 2 to 3 millimeters in the heel. And then obviously we have the adjustable weight in the heel, can make that heavier and shift it even more that way.
Yeah, it's an interesting club because while something that's called Max D or Max Draw seems to be set up really for the people who fight a slice, it's interesting because you can find a fair number of players who you wouldn't put in that category who still can use this, maybe very capable golfers who like a bit of a right starting line but always want to draw the ball. And just having that sort of confidence that the club is there helping them do that is another audience for a driver that otherwise would appear to be for the anti-slice kind of
Yeah, and I think you could, I'd draw most shots anyway, and then this one, the way I would accommodate the draw-headed driver anyway is just aim slightly in the heel closer to the CG anyway, and you make this thing work. So even your strike location can play a little bit of a role in that, for sure. If you like to draw but hit him in the heel, this might be the actual good driver for you. This one I have at about 12.
Yeah, a little higher loft on that one.
Yeah.
And then this one's particularly a little bit unique, I think, to your point of it's, you know, slightly draw biased, but it's not like his max draw driver. It's much higher MOI than many drivers, draw drivers we've measured in the past.
That's right. That's one of the advantages of the body technology. So basically a titanium frame with a carbon crown, and a fair amount of the sole is carbon fiber as well. That minimizes the sort of structural weight of the head and allows us to maximize the weight we can put elsewhere for good benefits. So a lot of that weight goes into this tungsten speed cartridge in the back here, and then in the case of the draw driver, some of it goes into the heel to give us that draw bias. But overall, we still end up with a very forgiving driver. Normally you're making a much more severe trade in moving weight from the back into the heel to create that draw effect. Not so much in Rogue ST.
Yeah. So that one I hit on the toe, a little high on the face.
So we see all of them also feature the new jailbreak design as well too. Can you
Right.
comment on that of, I guess, what's different and what kind of performance benefits
Yeah, so
do we
these
see
have
versus previous gen?
They have the speed frame version of Jailbreak. So Jailbreak has the 2 vertical bars, and the primary purpose is to stiffen the head in the vertical direction, effectively moving, allowing the body to breathe less in this direction, and then more of the energy is focused on the face in the direction of impact. So that's the primary Jailbreak benefit. The speed frame also improves the torsional stiffness of the head. So particularly for off-center impacts, if you hit high toe or low heel, the head wants to additionally twist, or the face even might want to. And we're just trying to resist that motion a little bit more to make the jailbreak effect, as we call it, even more pronounced, particularly on your mishits.
Excellent. And that's going to, as far as ball performance and ball flight characteristics, what would that primarily change?
Yeah, we're looking to make sure that as many of the impacts that would be off-center behave like center impacts, so it improves that consistency of speed and spin again.
Okay. So it's not only a distance benefit, it sounds like, but also some directional benefits in there as well.
Overall, yes. Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
Did I do that right?
Yeah, do them all like that.
I was a little too low on the
Pretty
face.
good shape.
I don't know, I'm a little rusty here today, but most of these are pretty good. This one, super forgiving. All of them look really nice, Doc. Kudos
Thanks.
to you
Yeah.
on that. Sometimes the more forgiving drivers do look a little odd, but I think these look awesome.
Yeah, we've worked on providing, say, draw in the case of the draw driver or the max driver. Yes, they have what you would call large format shapes as you look from above at a dress, but they don't have any sort of goofy aspects to them. They're not necessarily drooping to the heel side that can really put people off, and the face angles are not particularly out of range for a lot of people's eye. They look quite neutral at setup.
Okay. Well, let's talk about shafts. We teased that a little bit. I have an actual Ventus Fujikura shaft. This one's still #1 on the tour. See
Right.
Jordan Spieth playing with this, and Scotty Scheffler. Pretty much everybody who's playing really well has something or some variation of this. I've seen
Right.
red, blue, and black. But talk about shafts versus heads and which one to get fit for first.
Yeah, it's a great topic. So obviously I work for a company that makes golf club heads. So
we are aware.
My first
Yes.
statement will be that, and we can all agree on this part, that the shaft does not hit the ball. Okay, the head hits the ball.
I hope not.
And so the purpose of the shaft is to help you deliver the head in the form that optimizes the impact and therefore the downrange ball flight.
Yeah.
So how can the shaft do that? Well, if you put the shafts on a robot, the robot tends to overpower the shafts. It delivers a lot of shafts that are seemingly quite different very similarly.
Sure.
So the thing that's happening is over time the shaft is having an effect on you that you sense somehow. And that is about timing in your swing and the feedback that you're getting from the shaft during the swing that alters the way that the club arrives at the ball. And that's what creates the difference. So when people say this is a low spin shaft, it didn't magically create low spin. It altered the way that the club arrived at the ball in order to create that lower spin effect.
Exactly. And you can get away with fitting clubs in different ways. You can start with the shaft. Like sometimes, that's probably how Brad and I pick them out sometimes. What looks the coolest? Let's start with that, then we'll fit a head around it. But for most people, the way you'd want to do that is find one of the 4 heads in your line that is most adapted to the types of shots they either hit or don't want to hit.
Yep.
And then tweak the combo with the shaft to fine-tune the launch or the spin if you can.
I think that's right. I think you can definitely start with the head, like you say, one of the 4, and then by then you'll have some head speed or ball speed measurements that give you a really good idea about the weight range of the shaft for an average golfer in particular that you're looking for. And then you fit the flex after that. And if you've got more advanced players, then you know about other torque characteristics in shafts that you might want to, particularly the higher head speed players who want to take maybe one side out of play or are struggling for lowering spin in a number of cases. You start to go to the more advanced sort of shaft parameters to fit for those.
Seems like just in general, you can just influence the ball flight quite a bit more with the head and then use the shaft as a way of just kind of dialing in those last couple of RPMs or last couple yards of dispersion.
Yeah, and there are definite field preferences and things like that that people will pick up on.
Maybe you can't quite measure as much.
Yeah.
Now, if you want a $1,000 driver, start with the shaft. If you want to have one that fits you really well, that's not necessarily the best place to start.
Right.
But you can go both ways. It'll work like that, so I understand.
Looking cool is part of the game, too?
It is. That's why
Yeah.
I kid that we start with the shaft. I won't play that Ventus Blue. Look how plain that is. That's boring. Irons. I really like these Rogue Pro irons that I've got here. In particular, I was shocked at the MOI of these. I don't remember exactly what the number is, but
Right.
for the players' distance irons, these might have been the highest that we've tested here so far.
Yeah, they're what I would generally call sneaky good. The iron sets up, presents itself as a better player type of a shape. Maybe not all the way to a tour iron like our Apex TCB or something like that, or a muscleback, but certainly something that has that more slender sole, less offset, thinner top line, the look from the rear of a muscleback, but definitely a multi-piece iron. So this has the cup face technology that's generally well known these days for generating ball speed. But we're, like the drivers, we're using that face design to control spin these days as well, and doing that in tandem with a lot of tungsten weighting that's on the inside of the iron. So combination of all those technologies allowing us to provide an iron that's pretty forgiving in the long irons relative to its shape,
Right.
and has the kind of consistency in the mid and the short irons that the better players are looking for.
Cool badging in the back.
So they're going to look good in your bag, and
That's
so
right.
I've actually got those ones in mine now, and literally was unwrapping them as I played, and I was just impressed of just the distance gains that I got with them, and just again how forgiving they were for what looks again like a muscleback, even though
Yeah.
it's a two-piece construction,
And
and still feels one piece. Though.
Right, and if you're on the golf course and you're the kind of golfer that's aiming at the flag, not just at the green, then this is the sort of shape and size of iron that will suit your eye. And you can hit those workable shots, the high fades into a right pin and all those sorts of cool shots to impress your friends. But you do get that sort of that distance and consistency benefit.
That's
from the
what's important,
technology.
Doc, is impressing your friends.
It's assuming you have friends.
Yeah, so launch at 19, backspin 5,000 is probably a little low for me, but good launch for what I'm trying to do, just hitting a pretty normal shot.
So how about comparing the Pro then to our Max and our Max OS?
Yeah, so these two irons are a definite
Max
step
OS.
into the more game improvement side of the market. So Callaway's had a really strong position sort of historically in the center of the game improvement part of the market. Going back historically, the X series of irons have always done very well there. And I think they suit the needs of a lot of players who genuinely struggle to make great contact with irons. So an iron like this one, compared to the Pro, has a much wider sole, more offset, bigger blade overall, and a look at a dress that will inspire a bit more confidence. And making consistency of contact is the primary problem that a golfer has who would be picking this type of iron. So the wider sole helps protect against the sort of too early into the turf type of swing. And we also know that because people are mortally fearful of hitting into the ground, they tend to hit pretty low on the face as well. So we put a much higher priority in ball speed performance across the bottom of the face for this type of player, and the ability to launch the ball easily and consistently from those low impact locations on the face. So the AI design tools that we're using actually know about all of those objectives for this type of player, and they will change the face thickness pattern relative to, say, the Rogue Pro iron pretty dramatically in order to influence that high launch, easy to launch kind of characteristic.
So what do you have Rahm and Schauffele playing?
They're playing the TCB irons right
Yeah,
now.
okay.
So they're a different level again. They've got a much more specific eye on turf interaction, and the way that they want the ball to fly in a certain window as well. So flighting the ball differently. You know, John and Xander play the game quite differently in terms of the way that they want to control ball flight. John Rahm plays a slightly higher spinning golf ball, the Chrome Soft X, and prefers to use his own technique to take spin off of the shots to hit certain height windows that he's interested in.
Yeah.
Xander plays the XLS ball primarily, a slightly lower spinning golf ball, and allows the ball to do that more often for him. So he hits more of a stock shot more often. And they both approach the off-speed shots where they're between clubs quite differently as well. But that TCB iron gives them a lot of good feel and consistency in hitting those shots.
Can you maybe comment on, you mentioned hitting some different windows and how that, maybe some of those concepts apply to like your average player, and how different lofts, even though they're all 7 irons, they have different lofts for all of them, and maybe how why that is?
Yeah, so there's a lot that goes on there in choosing loft within a set, and you could look at just sort of a spreadsheet of the lofts by iron on paper and kind of go, goodness, they're strong.
Yep.
But it only really tells part of the story, because it's not telling the story of how much weight is positioned low inside the head. So those irons that have the stronger lofts also have the most tungsten, really bringing the center of gravity down low. So even though the loft might read strong on paper, the combination of that loft plus the material inside and the low center of gravity actually produces a more optimal launch. Now, yes, it is lower spinning, and that does generate or help to generate distance. But if we can keep that spin from dropping too low by having good spin consistency, then we should deliver the best of both worlds. Now, with that comes the choice of golf ball as well, and the balls like the Chrome Soft golf ball that we produce actually fly slightly higher than a lot of other golf balls, higher launching, higher apex flight. So combinations of iron choice and ball choice are significant in the overall flight and then the landing power that you have landing your short irons. Because I know even average golfers who might not be targeting the flag so specifically still need to land it maybe in a certain area of the green, and the ability to land, stop predictably and not run through the green is something that we do pay a lot of attention to, even in the irons that are built on the stronger end of the loft spec. So there's a balance that we're trying to achieve for different types of golfers all the way through the set.
Yeah, and I think that that descent angle that you're alluding to, the angle that the ball's landing when it comes into the green, is one that we certainly focus on a lot with our training.
Right.
Of trying to hitting an iron really far is fun, but if it hits the green and rolls off the back, that can get old pretty quick. So
Speaking of
finding
which,
that
that's what I
balancing
just
act.
tried to do. I
Just tried to hit it really far.
7 iron 240.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you don't need a 6 iron.
Yeah,
Just
true.
stop at
Achieve.
the 7.
And through the backside of the green, they're usually not.
That
very
one
good
probably
places.
landed pretty
Yeah.
good. But
And what I do
you're right.
appreciate in the Rogue ST line as well too is the Max OS is actually even slightly weaker than the Max.
Right.
It
So
is.
for a player that needs that forgiveness, but maybe just doesn't swing fast enough to get the Max Airborne,
That's
we
right.
have some different options in there as well.
That's right. That is there on purpose to give maybe that player who struggles more with consistency of contact, or maybe has a lower head speed, or that more variable impact location. The Max OS is there to give that additional help in getting the ball airborne. And we'd probably expect that kind of golfer maybe to transition to a hybrid in their set, maybe one club earlier than some others as well, to improve that long game area and still get the ball up in the air repeatedly when you're hitting shots over 170 yards and things like that.
And that's just why going through a fitting is so important, not just grabbing something off the rack.
Right.
You might get it right, but spending that little bit extra time,
Yeah.
go through a proper fitting, test out some different stuff, and again, you're going to make the investment.
Make sure you're not wasting your money.
Yeah, you
Yep.
get the ones that
Absolutely.
are for you.
Thoughts on iron shafts?
A lot of choices are available, and I would say weight dominates in this case. So for the people buying the Max Iron and the Max OS, we see a lot of carbon fiber graphite shafts being used, and the steel shaft options are generally lighter as well than we would put into maybe a Rogue Pro or an Apex Iron. So I think weight dominates in the choice of shaft variety.
Yeah.
Has there been any interesting trends on tour when it comes to iron shafts? Are they all still pretty much holding to?
That's interesting.
They're old favorites.
The iron shafts move around probably the least. There are new variants of shafts like dynamic gold that are out at the moment, and those are getting some attention. But it's one of the areas that people seem to find a sort of a weight class of iron type, and one that they're familiar with, and stay model after model, even if we're changing heads. They don't really like to mess around
A little
with
bit less
iron shafts that
experimenting when it
much.
comes to the irons.
Yeah.
It makes sense. And then for a lot of people who get fit who have slower club head speeds, we do a ton of stuff on gears, and deflection is such an enemy of women's sets and even senior sets. There's so much deflection. It's difficult to hit these off the ground.
Yeah.
I always find the most success with super ultralight regular shafts, or even stiff shafts for people who don't swing very fast, to help them hit the ball off the ground.
Yep.
Anything like that sound strange to you? You're
No,
the smart one, Doc.
No, I think that's true. So I think at a certain speed and shaft flexibility, you actually start to lose a sense of where the head is in the shaft, in the swing.
Yeah.
And maybe people who are not particularly advanced golfers don't have a great sense of that to start with.
Sure.
But the idea that you're making that worse for them is a real problem. And I have heard multiple people talking about if you can get the shaft light enough, then a firmer flex can actually be an advantage in
to hit it off
overcoming
the
some of
ground.
those
I mean,
problems.
if your shaft is deflecting, so it's bending this way when you hit the ball, like 20 millimeters, I couldn't hit a ladies 7-iron off the ground like that. It's too difficult without really changing my swing form. So I often see people make that mistake.
Okay.
By the way, these feel pretty good. It's the first time I've hit these.
These golf balls?
Golf balls, yeah.
Yeah, so the current Chrome Soft is a really good golf ball. We changed the construction on it slightly this year. It's a three-piece golf ball. It's fractionally different in compression than its predecessor, but it was meant to increase speed primarily in the long shots without giving up a lot of the feel and the short game characteristics that people have really grown to like about Chrome Soft. It's a relatively lower spinning golf ball in your mid-irons, and that's where you'll see distance advantage as well. But as I was mentioning earlier, it's a relatively high flying golf ball, so pretty forgiving of those iron shots where you don't quite make perfect contact, and it will feel good by being relatively lower compression.
Okay. Well, thanks for the talk, Doc. We don't get to talk to enough smart people about golf clubs, especially the engineers. We do, but not enough. So yeah, it's awesome.